Hello and welcome to the July 24th edition of the DRF Players Podcast, Saratoga opening day. I'm Mike Hogan. That's Muggs, remote with Pete Fornatel in Saratoga. And we've also got Scott Carson here from Public Handicapper. Welcome.
No, that wasn't me.
Yeah. Yes, Muggs is excited. I know Muggs is super excited for opening day.
It's opening day, man, and the mailman's here.
That's dog for Saratoga.
All right. Well, Pete, how are you doing up there? I see you made it safely.
Made it safely here. I repositioned the picture of Easy Goer behind me so it can make an appearance on our podcast as well.
Love it.
The mailman will be gone in a minute, and this will get back.
You know what you need to do is you need to put a picture of Sunday Silence just on the other side of your head. Sorry.
Love it.
I was always a big Sunday Silence.
Love it. I love
Hey,
it.
he's
Scott,
cool too, but this is New York's Easy Goer.
I know.
Scott, welcome. How are you doing?
Thanks.
Great to have you back as always.
Great to be here. I'm as psyched about Saratoga as everybody else, except that I didn't handicap today's card because I'm really busy. But I'm going to be playing all the Saratoga card tomorrow, and it's like a holiday.
It is. You know? It is. It's the official start of summer for me.
Yeah, I mean, these next 6 weeks when Saratoga and Del Mar open is just, the Breeders' Cup is great and the Kentucky Derby is great too, but when this time comes, then you realize that life is good.
Right, exactly. All right, so we got a few things to cover. Before we jump into the PH races, Pete, I know you wanted to do a little tourney talk, and I know we also maybe wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about our approach and how we're gonna attack the Saratoga meet. So Pete, I don't know. Why don't you start with tourney, and then we'll transition to Saratoga, and then we'll jump into the PH races.
Sounds good. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with Scott was just to get an update on what's happening in the Public Handicapper Challenge and get a look at some of the people who are having success there. While Scott looks into that, I'm going to just mention some of the contests we have coming up this weekend. I agree with Scott completely. The Derby and the Breeders' Cup are special in their own way, but I feel like these 6 weeks for the true horse player are really the best time of the year, and folks looking to get involved in contest action this weekend can do so on Saturday at bcqualify.com. There's a contest that's a little bit different. The buy-in is a bit higher than usual, but the ratio of entries to seats is more favorable for the player. So that's an opportunity on Saturday. I think it's about a $360 buy-in. Then on Sunday on nhcqualify.com, we've got a standard $165 buy-in contest with up to 4 seats for the National Handicapping Championship, an event I know Scott has played in many times. Going to be happening on Sunday. Both Saturday and Sunday, there's an opportunity for folks to win their way into the Gulfstream Park Live Bankroll Contest, September 19th at Gulfstream, $3,000. Instead of putting that up, you can win that buy-in for $80 on drfqualify.com. Why not do that instead? I think that's going to shape up as a key prep race, if you will, for handicappers looking to play in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge.
And I should add that the BC Qualify tomorrow, which I might play depending on how my handicapping goes, if I really like the races tomorrow, which I've only done the Public Handicapper races, but there's 12 races that day. It's limited to 120 entrants, so it's a higher buy-in, but it's 120 entrants and 3 potential winning spots. It's going to sell out. I mean, it's going to sell out. So 3 people are going to go to the BC, and it just looks like a good opportunity. I mean, it's better than 200 to 300 entries. Then you have to have like a tremendous day. But with 120, your odds are a lot higher. So I'm considering playing that one.
Great, love it. So what about Public Handicapper? How's everything going with the PH prep? I know the
PH prep is over.
Oh, sorry,
this is the actual contest.
Right.
Well, I'm just gonna I'm looking at the NHC Tour players because if you're not a member of the NHC Tour, you're not really serious as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
A public handicapper. You are allowed to play, but I don't get excited about people unless they have that logo next to their name. So the leader is still Fido Pop 2, and he's like $30 ahead of the next 2 NHC Tour guys. Now, MN Richards and Crusader Rabbit, I happen to know who they are.
Okay.
And they're brothers.
Crusader Rabbit.
And they always get to the NHC. I mean, they're always. It's rare when I don't see one of those guys there, and I would put my money on both of them to pull out this contest. I mean, it's not even half over.
Really?
But
so you think they'll run down the loose leader?
I think once these guys are up there. At least Crusader Rabbit, he's been in the top 10 in the NHC twice.
Wow.
In the NHC, the actual.
Who
NHC.
is he, Scott?
I don't know.
You can't divulge?
I don't know if I want to divulge. I mean, I could.
Who's that?
He was in the top 10 this year.
Yeah.
I can tell you that, and you can figure it out. And the horse and the name Crusader Rabbit is the name of the horse. He had like a 60-1 first-time starter. Wow. The last time he was in the top 10 in the NHC, and so that's the name that he took for Public Handicapper. So
it's a good superhero name too.
This sounds like a future article for me to write.
Absolutely.
Always, the wheels are always turning.
If this guy, because once he's there, this guy's really smart. Once he's near the top, he stays there. He doesn't drop out. So I'd put my money on him, Crusader Rabbit. But his brother also, could do well, and probably the two of them are going to take it. I should also note that there's a couple of, aside from Public Handicap, there's a couple of contests that I'm in that I recommend everybody try to get into. One is tomorrow at Monmouth, and it's a real money contest, and they're giving away, I think, 3 or 4 spots. They're giving away 4 spots. It's $150 entry fee, $150 real money, and it's live bankroll. You have to play at least 10 races, $10 or $15 to win place or show. It's a great contest. I know, there's anybody in the Northeast goes to that contest, and it's a really popular. All the Monmouth contests are really popular because you can have a 5-2 and put 200 to win on it, and like jump into the lead. Mm-hmm. So that's what's cool about the live bankroll contest. So that's tomorrow. Unfortunately, if you're not within driving distance of Monmouth, you're not really. It's going to be harder for you to get there tomorrow.
Sure.
But the other contest is the Saratoga contest coming up August 12th and 13th, and that is it's not a live bankroll contest, but it's technically real money, but just 2 to win, place, and show over 2 days. It's a great contest. It's $1,000 buy-in, but you're in Saratoga, so it's worth it. So you're playing this awesome contest. You're in Saratoga, and I don't think they cap the entries. So anybody who wants to go, make your plans, figure out a way to get to Saratoga, and enter that contest.
Awesome.
It's always a lot of fun, that contest, and could have major ramifications on the NHC Tour this year as well. I'm not sure about that not capping thing. I know in the past sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Definitely check in with Donnie Nelson and Ira if you're interested in playing, and don't wait too long in case they do decide to cut the number.
They say there's a cap of 200, but they always let in whoever wants. It's just and we like it when they do that because there's more prize money.
Is it sort of like those conventions that say no jeans allowed?
I don't know. I've never been to one of those, but I will say that with a $1,000 buy-in. Not that many, you're not going to get 300 people at Saratoga because the buy-in's kind of high.
Sure. Well, all right. Well, it is opening day at Saratoga. A lot of exciting stuff, a lot of great racing, a great weekend, and Monday racing is back too. What are your guys' thoughts and what is your approach now that we turn to Saratoga, now that summer starts, now that you see these royally bred juveniles debuting? How are you guys going to be approaching not just the meet, but your wagering strategy and trying to make money there?
Shall I go first?
Go for it.
I handicap the same way I usually do, but what I like about Saratoga is you're getting shippers from all over the place.
Yeah.
So, even in the stake race that we're going to talk about for tomorrow, you got horses coming from Churchill, Ellis, Monmouth, and I think that's a great opportunity to look at speed figures, but then also watch the races. Watch the races and see, especially like the one we're going to talk about today. A lot of them just run one race. So how do they look in that particular race? Did they finish well? Do they gallop out well? So don't throw out horses. Like if there's a horse coming from Ellis, don't throw it out just because it's coming from Ellis. Look at the race. Like there's a Lucas horse. I don't think I'm going to pick him, but there's a Lucas horse that just ran at Ellis, but he had like a bad start and he got bothered and.
Yeah, we'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk about him.
Yeah, so you got to, so I find that, a lot of the bombs are coming from outside of New York, and that's kind of my strategy for those type of races. And for for maidens, same thing. You get the royally bred ones. If you're gonna play a horizontal, you have to include anybody who's, like Pletcher. You always have to include him, no matter what. But then you also have to include horses that have worked fast at other venues that might get overlooked at 15-1.
Right. Pete, what's your approach?
For me, the biggest difference with Saratoga is I get to see the majority of the horses I'm planning on betting on in the flesh. So Scott makes excellent points about how the handicapping changes and the sort of the extra steps you can take on that side. And I still do all that work to get myself a foundation of handicapping going in. But a lot of my wagering decisions are going to be made with the real-time information that I see with my own eyes over there. So some days I might decide just to go over for the late pick 4, try to finish up my racing form work and, roll over there about 3:30. Other days I may plan, there's this 2-year-old race that's going as the 4th, and I got to make sure I get over there for that so I can see him in the flesh. And just because I look at them come by doesn't necessarily mean I'll be making a bet. But if nothing else, then I can add to my formulator notes database and maybe have a lot more of an idea later in the year when these horses come back as to what my own impression of them was when I got to see them here live at Saratoga. So that takes on much more importance for me at this meet.
I love it.
Yeah, I love being at Saratoga, and I always look at the horses when I'm there. They're, especially this year, because they have picnic tables right at the edge of the paddock. At least I saw a picture of them on Twitter.
The controversial ones for sale.
Controversial ones for sale, which means you're not going to be able to snuggle up to the rail. Maybe there's a few places you'll be able to do that. So you may not get that chance. You may have to look at them from more of a distance. But one way that you can look at them really closely is get on the rail about 22 minutes to post. There's a railing. They walk through the whole backyard, and it's a great chance to just look at them really close. They're not saddled, but there's the grooms will have a little number, and you can get a really up close look. And sometimes you can see a horse is not doing well just walking past you, but you're like right there. You're like 5 feet away from them. So that's just this is something I usually do.
Yeah, some people will watch them walk in and then position themselves right at the gap outside the paddock as they walk into the track and make observations based on that, how they look coming in and then how they look with the rider up coming out. And then, of course, that process can continue to follow them along to the gate. I don't take it that seriously. For me, I position myself, and this is a good tip for people looking to see horses in the flesh. If you're not picnicking, go into the paddock bar area where Shake Shack is. There should be still plenty of rail along there, especially if you position yourself early enough to get a look at the horses coming out of the paddock and onto the track. I feel like that's a really critical time for them where you can have a lot of signs if they're going to boil over or if maybe they were just a little jittery. Sometimes they'll settle down and get down to business as they come out. For me, that's my favorite spot to watch from.
And there's a bar there, which is a coincidence, I'm sure.
Guilty as charged, huh, Pete?
Come say hi, please, in the paddock bar. I'll be there almost every day.
All right, well, let's dive into these races. The first one is the 9th at Saratoga on Saturday. It's the Grade 3 Sanford. It's for 2-year-olds. As you mentioned, Scott, many of them have run only once or twice in their life. So there's not a whole lot to go on, at least from a past performance standpoint. So you have to use kind of all the tricks in your handicapping arsenal in order to make opinions and make picks and plays and put your money behind it. So these are the kinds of races I love to handicap because it really combines a lot of the tools that I like to use. The pedigree analysis, the trainers, the trainer intent. In this case, grade 3, most of them the intent is to win, but if it's a maiden race, sometimes the intent is not necessarily to win the race. You know, of course, the works and all of that sort of stuff. So I love these kinds of races. Let's start with you, Scott, as the guest.
Okay.
What's your take on the Sanford?
Well, I have I have a lot to say about this race, so
good.
Hopefully I won't take up too much time. I would say that I really like races like this, stake or not, when there's a lot of horses or any horses running for the second time.
Yeah.
Because in contests, I've learned that I've noticed in any contest I've been in, there's almost always, if it's like a full day contest with a lot of races, there's always some horse that wins its second start at double-digit odds. Mm-hmm. Now, why does it win? Well, there's so many things that could happen its first race, like it ran in the slop, or it broke poorly, or the trainer just said, hey, you just gallop the horse. And you really can't tell. So it's a great opportunity to take a price horse, especially in this race. You know, the favorites look pretty tough, but I'm going to pick a horse that's a second time out for a variety of reasons. In this case, it's going to be the 1, Awesome Slew. And I have a lot of, I felt like Mike Hogan with my formulator last night, and I have all kinds of notes on here.
Good.
So
you have one. Your note I can see is the same note I have as well.
Yeah, that's one. That's one of the many notes, right?
Yeah.
Super lucky. This is a half to super lucky, okay. So the race was solid. It was fast. If you look at the buyers, it's about the same. You know, maybe only a couple points slower than the favorite, which is Cocked and Loaded. So he ran a 79 in his last race, and this horse ran a 70. Okay, so that's 9 points, but it's the second start, which means he's got great opportunity to improve. And horses almost always improve strongly from their first to their second.
And that 79 for Cocked and Loaded was in his second start.
That was his second start, so he's done his
He's already done that second
potentially,
start.
Potentially, right. So I looked up some stats on Plaza and Paco Lopez. They teamed up to win the Woodward here at Saratoga. Like, I always check to see how a trainer does at a track. Sometimes they just can't go to some tracks. They just can't win. They won the Woodward. Was that last year? With It's My Lucky Day. So we know that he can win a stake race up here. That was a Grade 1 race. He also wins at 21% with his any horse that's won. You know, it's their second start. If it's their second start in graded stakes, he's 0 for 1, but that's, you know, small. If it's second start in non-graded stakes, now this is a graded stakes, but a non-graded stakes is still a good quality, 6 for 18.
Yeah.
Second start, non-graded stakes, and 4 of those wins are with Paco Lopez. So, you know, at 10 to 1, I think he'll be a little lower than 10 to 1. He's 8 to 1 on PH right now. He is, to me, he's kind of a no-brainer pick for me.
I also tweeted out earlier, Paco has 5 mounts today on the opening day card, and obviously is riding tomorrow. I don't know if we'll see him the whole meet, but last 2 Saratoga meets combined, 6 for 34, 17%, 41% in the money, 384 ROI. Just Paco as a jockey.
Wow.
So, and he's usually there riding for Eddie Pleasa. So I like it. Pete, what's your thought?
Yeah, Awesome Slew is definitely an interesting contender. My only fear about that last race from Monmouth was I did think that was a day that was really kind to speed. But hey, from the rail with Paco up, you make some good points for him to try to break and just steal the thing. I was going in a different direction here. I was going to take a look towards the outside with number 9, Twirling Cinnamon. And pursuant to what Scott was talking about before, it's mostly just from watching that race and looking at the tape. I thought that was a very rough trip where he showed plenty of class to be able to get up and get the job done. Certainly going to have to improve from a buyer speed figure standpoint, but I thought with the trouble that he had in there, having to sort of get trapped in behind and come through on his courage late. Seemed like the kind of horse to me that could make that kind of second out improvement that Scott's been talking about.
And that's a great point about watching that race. I have to admit, I did not watch this particular race. I should have, because it says that he was.
Scott's watching it right now.
Yeah, he said he was bottled up, and when a horse is bottled up, that's a great reason to play them again next out.
Yeah.
At 10-1, that's
I thought that
horse.
trouble was legit.
I think I might put him in second. Now.
Yeah, I did a little bit of work on at least the pedigree of Twirling Cinnamon. The dam was a dirt sprinter and was 3 for 3 as a 2-year-old, and that's something I always like to look at. If the dam herself won early,
she was 3 for 3 as a 2-year-old.
3 for 3 as a 2-year-old.
Wow, nice.
I think it was in Texas or something. It wasn't.
Doesn't matter.
Right? Yeah, but she won her debut, and then she won her next 2 starts. That's the kind of thing I like to look for. So yeah, that's actually one I would use as well. Your morning line favorite and probably your likely favorite is Cocked and Loaded. I loved him last out in the Tremont, and he ran well at a short price. I probably will have to go against him here. The one I landed on, I have Awesome Slew on my short list. I have Twirling Candy on my short list. I may use those 2 underneath. I think the one I've landed on top is number 10 Percolator, partly based on watching the last race. Broke a little, maybe a step or 2 slow. You kind of see it basically in the running line. Broke from the rail, was 4th at the start, and then got clear. And ran away pretty professionally for the first start. John Service does all right first out, and beat 8 horses that day. One of them, the second place finisher, came back to win. There was another one lower in the race that also came back to win. The race came back okay. It was at Monmouth. I didn't do the work to see whether that was a speed favoring day or not.
It usually is, isn't it?
It usually is at Monmouth.
It was not that day, actually.
So there you go. It's just the kind of effort I like to see first out. I think may improve actually going longer, or could be. I think Paco's going to be going from the rail, but if for whatever reason he clears or stalks, could work out a good trip because it has good early speed. And was really was asked a little in the stretch when he was clear, but was kind of wrapped up late. It's the kind of effort at 12-1. I don't know if I'm going to get that as the actual price. Again, 73 buyer in the debut.
I think you are.
Yeah, if there's any improvement, why not? I think he could be a good one.
Well, what I like about this race
Mike,
is that we all have.
Did you see any?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
We all have.
I'm on a little
10-1 or
delay
higher.
here, so that's the confusion.
Yeah.
No problem.
But we're all on 10-1 or higher.
10-1 or higher. Yeah. Pete, what were you going to say?
I just had a question about Percolator. If you'd seen any evidence in the pedigree for the distance, noticing that he hasn't had a published work past 5 furlongs, and the debut was 4.5. Was just curious if you saw anything specific in the pedigree work you do to think that the 6 furlongs will be no problem.
Well, I mean, the difference between 4.5 and 6 at this age, with a little forward movement. I mean, I didn't do I did look at the first dam and the second dam, and I looked at some of the siblings. Nothing really jumped out. They seem to be more dirt sprinters, but I didn't go so deep as to figure out 4.5 versus 6. I just figure the way he ran first out, the extra furlong and a half shouldn't really matter. And even though he hasn't worked past 5 furlongs, he's had 2 5-furlong works. A trainer like John Service, who does pretty good work, and you probably wouldn't send him to Saratoga unless he was relatively well meant. I got to figure, why not at a price? The other 2 I want to talk about real quick. You mentioned John Q. Public, the Dwayne Lucas runner who won first out at Ellis Park after having a little trouble early and then pulling away. I actually like, one of the things I like to do, and I think you've noticed it, Scott, is I like to look at horses that buck the trend. And Lucas has had, I think, only 5 debut juvenile winners in the last 5 years.
Right.
Those horses are good horses. We're talking Take Charge Brandy, Mr. Z, Optimizer, one other who I think was either stakes place or stakes winner. So the fact that he had this one win first out puts him in somewhat elite company. I think the difference here is where he won and how he won. I don't know if you watched that race, but he didn't change leads late. And he's certainly going to have to here. Maybe if he does, he improves. He's going to need to improve quite a bit to threaten these guys. But at 20 to 1, he's a little interesting just from that trainer angle of he's one that usually doesn't have him cranked early.
Absolutely. I mean, you would expect a Lucas horse to have 3 starts and have lost by 20 lengths coming into this race, and then he could still have a chance.
Right.
So the fact that this horse won, had some trouble, and he's got Saez on him.
Right.
He's legit at 20 to 1. I
could do worse.
I did look at the race, and I didn't see enough trouble for me
Right.
to actually pull the trigger on the horse. But
yeah,
you know,
I agree. I think that trouble line is a little overstated, from what I saw at least. And then one other quick note. He's a long shot, and I'm not really making a case for him, but it's interesting to note that number 2, Save the Drama, is listed as a first gelding and was listed as being the gelding date, reporting date, as the day after his maiden breaking win. Those are the kinds of things where I circle them and I say, you know, it's probably not the case. I think more likely what happened is Presque Isle either got the information late or submitted it late. But I would imagine that this gelding, or this horse was gelded prior to even his debut back on May 31st. So,
and you also, I noted that this horse should dirt. I mean, his dad won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. You know, there's not much on the dam side, but I think this horse is already faster than any of any of its siblings. So it doesn't really matter what the other siblings are. So he should be able to dirt, and you know, he's run twice. Good spacing. The trainer hasn't run up here. I don't think you'd be crazy to pick this horse in this contest.
No, but it's just one of those where if I see that first gelding, it's a bit of a cautionary tale. Use your own logic to figure out whether you think it's legit or whether you think it's just more of a reporting late issue. So that's the main point I wanted to make about that one. Pete, anything else on the Sanford before we move on to the Grade 1 Diana?
Well, I just feel bad that we haven't mentioned a couple of the favorites.
Wow.
Who I agree.
Okay.
Those poor favorites.
They're not going to get enough attention.
I mean, let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this: is this the situation where we're coming up with these live long shots because of the nature of the race, or is it a quick case where we really have big knocks on a horse like he's coming in hot?
Well, to be honest, he's coming in hot. If you believe the morning line and you think it's going to stay true, is the third choice. And as the only graded stakes winner in the field, I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, he's going to get played.
I think he will.
But
I would have made him the favorite.
Right.
I think the most likely
4 to 1 behind Uncle Vinny at 7 to 2 and Cocked and Loaded at 3 to 1.
Oh, wait, which horse were we just? I thought we were talking about Cocked and Loaded.
No, he's coming in hot.
Oh yeah, I think he's the most likely winner actually. You know, I think he's found his groove, and Brett Calhoun.
Right.
What's that horse? Promise Me Silver won her first 7 starts.
Right.
I think the horse is the most likely winner. But it's only a little bit faster, and Calhoun is only like 1 for 10 at Saratoga. Yeah. So you can play against him. But if that horse does go off at 4 to 1, it's definitely worth putting some money on.
The concern with the Calhoun horse is just the pace. I'm not sure he's going to get an easy lead like he has in his last 2 starts with the other speed in there, and at a short price. I think even though he won a Grade 3, I'm not sure he beat really the quality that he's going to see tomorrow. So that was my main concern with him.
I'll add this about Uncle Vinny. Him I'm opposed to thoroughly. I was not impressed at all with that debut where he had to be ridden hard the whole way to win at 15 cents on the dollar. And then, the Tremont was a disaster. Again, he broke badly. There's if he's bet, to me, the value of the race could be just leaving him out of that top slot and trying to get cute depending on where the value is on the tote.
I agree with you entirely. I think of the 3 short-priced horses, the one that I would see as the most likely winner is Cocked and Loaded, but I'm just afraid he's going to be too short. Because I think he's one that could kind of be any kind. He's the first foal out of an unraced mare. Larry Ravelli is a fantastic trainer, mostly in Arlington and the Midwest.
He's 5 for 16 at Saratoga.
Yeah, when he shows up at Saratoga, he shows up with runners. So he's one that I would use as an A. Certainly, he would be the lone A of the 3 shortest price horses for me. All right, let's move on to the 10th. The Diana, it's a grade 1, mile and an eighth on the turf. It's a short field, but it's probably, for me, the most interesting race of the 4. So, Pete, why don't you start?
Sure. I think this is a race, like so many, where the pace is going to prove the key to what we end up seeing on the track. And I think with Tepin drawn to the inside, the presumable Rabbit Kitten's Queen in here, and the super fast My Miss Sophia here as well, that even though we only have 7 fillies and mares running, I think the pace is going to be hot. I mean, My Miss Sophia, I presume, might even clear with the other speed just because she's so fast. But with those other 2 to be at least stalking and pressing her, I'm hoping to see a setup for Lady Lara on the outside. Her last couple of races on their face are very uninspiring, but for me, both were big flow upgrades where she was far back running against tepid paces that Tepin was able to take advantage of. I think she might be able to turn the tables here at hopefully a very nice price for a filly I've always kind of liked.
Yeah, I agree. I actually tried to make a case for Lady Lara, and I may still end up using her depending upon what it seems like and after scratches what the race flow looks like. I had only a couple concerns, and one of them was a Bill Mott concern. I took a look last 5 years, and this isn't even just at Saratoga. This is all turf route grade 1 stakes in the last 5 years. He's only 6 for 73 with a 47-cent ROI with all runners. But it's worth noting that 4 of those 6 winners were last out winners, like My Miss Sophia. So horses like Lady Lara, who hadn't won their last start, he's 2 for 47. And the fact that he entered 2 here, I don't know if that's an indictment of one or what. I don't know how to read that. But I just know, especially at Saratoga, Mott horses tend to get bet. And I'm not sure I'd see that 10-1 morning line. I don't know. I do think the race sets up well for her. I actually kind of am with you, Pete, that I think it's an interesting pace scenario, especially with the 2 Chad Brown horses, the Rabbit in Kitten's Queen, and the potential live one in Stephanie's Kitten. Both had jock switches since the grade 2 New York last out. Makes me think Chad Brown wasn't happy with the way either one of those horses were ridden. So I think Kitten's Queen is has really one job here, and that's to go fast early, set it up as well as she possibly can for Stephanie's Kitten. I'm hoping a horse like number 4, Hard Not to Like, gets first run at the closers and gets the jump on Stephanie's Kitten and holds on late. I'm hoping it's a similar scenario to what we had last week with a Gabriel Charles or the one I was trying to make a case for, 2020 Vision, getting first run on the Rabbit and the other closer in the barn. And I tweeted out earlier, I don't know if you guys saw this, Scott, I know you saw it. Christophe Clement in the last year has had 12 graded stakes wins going along on the turf. 8 of those 12 were won with Johnny V aboard. Johnny, it's incredible. And 8 of the 11 starts with Johnny V aboard in turf route graded stakes were won. The one loss was the one second place finish was when Hard Not to Like was DQ'd in the grade 3 Endeavor. So 9 of the 11 finished first. 4 of the 55 other jocks, or other jocks were 4 for 55. One of those 4 wins was Hard Not to Like's last win in the Gamely with Victor Espinosa aboard, which I know, Pete, you love to watch races. I thought she was by far the best in that race. She was bottled up. She couldn't get room. She finally got room. She got up in time. The neck doesn't really tell the story about, I think, how good she was. And she beat a horse in Fantacola who ran really well next start. I think she's one that is absolutely live in here. I don't know if 5 to 1 is the price I'm going to get, but I'm happy to take a stand on her.
That's a great price on that horse. I don't think. I mean, I'd be surprised if it went off as high as 5 to 1.
We'll see. I mean, I know Tepin's going to take money. I know Stephanie's Kitten's going to take money, and My Miss Sophia is your 5 to 2 morning line favorite. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. Is My Miss Sophia going to be played that much? I'm not sure, but
yes,
you know,
you think? You think so?
Yeah,
You think
I think she's going to get
favored?
hammered.
I mean,
Okay.
Hard Not to Like always gets played. So
I think those 3 are going to be pretty close. I haven't even seen the morning line yet, but I would have made My Miss Sophia the favorite just off how visually dominating that last performance was against a good field. I know a lot of sharp handicappers were, saying whoa about that one, and the figure came back, not as strong as what Tepin has done, but I mean, she's going to be right there. I mean, I think people understand how dangerous of a weapon speed is, even on the turf. There's going to be the Tepin, Stephanie's Kitten, and My Miss Sophia. I think could be a 3-way battle for favoritism.
I agree that she was really visually impressive last out. I do, though, question the quality of that field because I looked at how they each of those runners performed. 5 of them have run back since. The only 2 of them hit the board. They both finished 3rd. The best next out buyer was an 84. So she sure ran them off her feet, but I think she's going to get some early pace pressure here. And at a short price, I'm happy to play against My Miss Sophia.
Yeah, I don't necessarily love her. I would use her. It's just, for me, I was just talking more in terms of what I think the market's going to do.
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, I think Stephanie's Kitten's going to be pounded to favoritism. She was 2nd in the filly and mare turf. She's been favored in 5 of her last races, 4 of her last 5, and the only one she wasn't favored in was the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. She was 9 to 2 there. She got 2nd. So I think she's gonna. On Public Handicapper right now, she's 9 to 5. So she is getting played the most. Hard Not to Like, maybe 4 to 1. That's where she is on PH.
I'm going to take that.
Sure. I'm going to go with Pete, and I'm down with Lady Lara. I think that she's. She came here to the U.S. her first race. She won a stakes race. Then she. Her first race this year, she won against Sandiva, which was a nice quality field, quality horse. I don't know really what happened in the race after that, but in her last race, she was on the inside the whole way. She really, didn't. I don't know. She didn't look uncomfortable, but it didn't look like she could. She didn't really have an opportunity to run until really towards the end, and she was a little bit farther from that fast pace. I don't know. Like, to me, she looks like a horse that hasn't exploded. Like Tepin exploded 2 races ago at Churchill at like 9 to 1, and then ran well again in her last race. So she's had her explosion, her 4-year-old explosion. I think Lady Lara has a chance to do that here. And now's the time to bet her when she's 10 to 1.
I was thinking that last time when she was 12 to 1. I was all over her in just a game, but
yeah.
So much for what
She
I
ran
know.
great.
She did, yeah. I think she was a little pace compromised there, and she did have a little bit of a trouble trip.
100%.
And and Junior Alvarado
she was wide
rode
to
her.
run at.
Yeah, but a good 4th doesn't help my win bet or my using her in the pick 4. So
And if you look at her
I
races,
will point out this, though. It doesn't mean that you were wrong. I apologize. It's hard for me to interrupt.
that's okay.
I just think it's an important point to make. You shouldn't say, I was wrong because you didn't win. If your decision-making process is sound and the horse runs really well at a good price, you were just unlucky. You got to praise your decisions, not praise your outcomes.
Fair point.
Okay.
Fair point. I just wish I wish my decisions also aligned with the money that I was putting in my pocket.
Yeah, so I'm looking for a good outcome. If you look at her races, Junior Alvarado won both. The two stakes races that she won. One was a 200,000 race. The other was a Grade 2. And he was on the inside. The only race that she was really on the inside was her last one, where she was still only a length and 3/4 behind T-Pin at the finish. That's a Grade 1 race. So all she really needs to do is pop, and I think at 10-1, especially with this pace scenario that Pete's been talking about, the more I look at it, the more I like.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think she's the one to play for contests. I just think that a horse like Hard Not to Like is probably a more likely winner. And I'm hoping I get a decent price because I hope it plays out in the market like Pete's talking about, where we have 3 horses that take the lion's share of the money, and she maybe gets a little overlooked.
Yeah, and note that the lady gets £6 from Hard Not to Like. So that's another concern with Hard Not to Like. That's
fair point. A fair point. All right, Pete, any closing thoughts before we move to the West Coast and Del Mar?
I think we should talk Del Mar. One thing I'll point out, though, is players playing in contests that contain both these 2 races that we're talking about, the Diana and the Fleet Treat. Unfortunately, for some strange reason this year, the Del Mar and Saratoga post times are just, they're not staggered at all. There's a lot of races on top of each other. So if you're playing on Saturday in that BCQ contest, like Scott's thinking of doing, make sure you have default picks in so you don't have a situation where you have a race where you don't end up with a pick. And be very conscious of that going forward. And hopefully at some point this meet, somehow common sense will prevail, and these 2 great summer meets will be staggering their post times a little better instead of having them on top of each other, which is the situation we have right here.
It's a great point, yeah, because there's 2 minutes between, if all goes off at the same time, hopefully the Del Mar delays a couple minutes and Saratoga is right on that post time. But yeah, you certainly don't want to get shut out. All right, so it's the 7 furlong for state bred $200,000 Fleet Treat. Maybe I'll go ahead and start since I haven't started one of these yet. This is a race. It's a 7-horse field. I think you've got 2 horses that will likely vie for favoritism: Big Book and Sheer Pleasure for Tim Yachtine and Phil D'Amato. I think they're both relatively legitimate favorites, but for both for a contest play and even just for my own personal handicapping, these are ones that I don't really want to lean on at a short price. I'd certainly use in multis, but I like to try and beat these kinds of horses, and I'm going to try and do so here with number 1 Patsy G and Me, who just on the face of it appears to be a better horse, at least as far as the buyer figures go, on a synthetic surface. Has never cracked a 70 on dirt, and it looks like you're probably going to need a low 80s in order to win this race, because Big Book in the second start got a 77, and Sheer Pleasure has come off 2 races above 80. So, but I think that last race in particular was a little bit deceptive, where she maybe broke a little bit slow and circled way wide at Pendleton on a day that maybe wide was not the place you wanted to be. A little concerning that she didn't change leads late. I'm hoping that's more just an anomaly either to that surface or that day. I think from the rail, I noticed that there's not a ton of other early speed in here, and if she goes back to some of her races earlier in the year with Joe Talamo aboard, I think she could maybe even get an early lead, or at least be sitting 2 or 3 early. I think she can work out a good trip, and she's going to be a good price. And it's also worth noting that the horse that she finished second to last out, Wild Forecast, is a pretty good one. Ran in a graded stakes at Pimlico, and so really, even though it's an only $59,000 Pendleton Pleasanton Oaks,
Pleasanton.
I think Pleasanton. I think that was a relatively decent second there behind a pretty good horse where she might have been maybe not on the best part of the track. So
Okay.
Let me go ahead, Mike.
Oh, you go ahead, Pete.
Just because I like the same horse. So it
Okay.
seems to make sense to follow it up. I was just looking at this and trying to, I think Sheer Pleasure could even be odds on in here, and I think she's super live. But for contest purposes, I think best case you're looking at 6 to 5, 7 to 5, and that's obviously not going to help you too much. I just didn't see a lot of speed and was hoping that Patsy G and me could just break and go to the top and maybe not look back. I mean, I think the price is going to be terrific because it doesn't necessarily seem from the PPs like she wants longer or dirt or Southern California. But I agree with you. Pleasanton is not a place where you want to be wide. It wasn't a terrible race, I suppose, but I just kind of threw it out because I agree. She wasn't super sharp off the break. The jockey kind of grabbed and, ends up making this wide move. And that's just not what you're looking to do with a bull ring like Pleasanton. So I just think I was just looking for something a little goofy. I'd need every bit of the 10 to 1. But, the NorCal form isn't bad. And I think there's worse places you could reach for a price here.
I think we'll get that price. Scott, what do you think?
Well, I didn't like this race. I picked it for Public Handicapper, but there weren't very many good races to pick this week. A lot of short fields at different racetracks.
You didn't decide to go with that third race at Saratoga, the baby race going 2 turns on the turf.
No, that could be really interesting, but stakes at Saratoga and Del Mar. I mean, it's hard to pass up. And actually, I did begin to start liking this race. And I don't know. Sometimes I decide on a winner, and then I start getting a little bit more excited about it. And the horse that I like here is Kiss at Midnight. If you look at the PPs, Sheer Pleasure's best buyer was an 86 2 races ago. And she's going to be what? She's 9 to 5. She's carrying 125 pounds, which is a lot. That's a lot of weight. Right. Kiss at Midnight's carrying 117, so you got 8 pounds less. And she just ran an 84. She's got like 7 weeks space into this race, and this trainer really likes Del Mar. He's 17% Del Mar with a 322 ROI. Baltus.
Baltus is good.
He's run 3 horses so far, and he's got a 2nd and 2/3. I think he's going to win one of the stakes at Del Mar, and if he does, then my profit will go up. I looked at this horse's last race. It won very easily. 1 or 2 of the horses came back to win. They weren't the greatest quality, but it was 7 furlongs at Santa Anita. The spacing is good. The trainer does well with the spacing. It's got enough speed that it can stay in touch if it's a slow pace, but it can also come off. Yeah, I like it. I mean, look, the horse that Bejarano got off this one for is is Big Book, who only has a 77 buyer, and I don't know who those horses. That was a 20,000 optional claimer. So I'm not sure why he did that, except that maybe because he's 4 for 7 with the trainer Yakteen. But I think this is I don't know, the more I look at this, the more I like Kiss at Midnight. Good spacing.
Nice.
That's all I can say. Yeah. And I would put Ashley Sassy also in 2nd. Trainer also likes Del Mar. But it's not a race to get too excited about. But
nice. Well, I think you've also perhaps tipped your hand at where you're going in the San Diego too.
I have.
So maybe we'll transition to there. It's the 8th at Del Mar. It's the Grade 2 San Diego Handicap. It's a mile and a 16th on the main track, which is now again dirt. And Scott, I think you've tipped that you've landed on number 5, Majestic City, huh? I
have tipped that. It's not. I don't know if I'm going to bet real money on this race, but he's well. The interesting thing about Majestic City is that as a 2-year-old, he was 2nd in the Del Mar Futurity and in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. Those were both synthetic racetracks, but the point is that these were Grade 1 races that he was 2nd in. So he was always a fast horse. And I feel like he's just getting back to that good form again now, because he won the Lone Star. I think it was the Lone Star Handicap.
Yeah.
Or
yep.
some, it's a grade 3 at Lone Star.
Yep.
He won at 6.5 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
That was about as fast as he's ever run. Mm-hmm. His next race, which was the Hollywood Gold Cup, the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, he literally went to his face at the start, so completely tossed that race. Right. He's got enough speed to be close, right behind Bayern and Appealing Tail. I'm going to go against Bayern no matter what, because he's carrying 123. He's got 2 bad races. It looks like he's back, but I think he's going to get pounded, and I think Majestic City could go off at 20 to 1. I'm taking a flyer because I'm against Bayern. I'm against Opportunity after running 2 races within 2 weeks, 2 really strong races within 2 weeks. I think that might have hurt him.
Squeeze a little juice out of the lemon.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna. You're not going to win a contest. I mean, I'm thinking in terms of contests too.
Sure.
I might just skip this race, but I am in a contest. I'm in the editor's contest, and the winner wins $1,250. Okay. I'm not going to really make up any ground with the favorites. So I'm going to take a flyer with Majestic City.
Pete, what do you think?
I think that's an interesting long shot way to go, and I think I want to get in on this Public Handicapper Editors Contest that Scott's talking about.
Everybody has to put up $250. The editors do that, and we all have to write a $250 check at the end of the year, depending on
That's great.
Except for the winner.
Except for the winner.
The winner gets all the checks.
I'm with you on being anti-Bayern. Rather than even make the case here, I'll just say listen to any conversation Matt Bernier and I have had about Bayern on the DRF Players podcast since its inception. I will book any bets on Bayern. Just come see me at the Paddock Bar.
Oh, I might take you up on that. What kind of odds you giving?
Tote.
Tote?
I'll give you the same as the tote.
All right. Well, I don't know if I want that, because I'm afraid he's going to get hammered.
But the horse that I like in here is Catch a Flight. I think that he's been kind of maligned. I've heard him maligned in some circles off his Gold Cup run. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a clear case of a too aggressive ride. I don't exactly know what the tactics were supposed to be there. It was sort of an oddly run race. Maybe Stevens was paying a lot of attention to Moreno, who ended up not firing, and then looked to me like he just pushed the button way too early, and the Catch a Flight just distribute his energy incredibly inefficiently in that race, and I feel like he might have been the best horse. Matt and Mike and I talked about that on a previous episode of the podcast as well. I know the price isn't going to be great, but this is one where I just feel committed to Catch a Flight, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and if I'm right, I'll have an $8 winner.
All right, I like it. Well, I tweeted out, I think this is where Bayern gets his groove back. I think he's your most likely winner, just because I think that he'll be able to get a lead, and I think his speed carries better going 2 turns, and so he's finally getting back to that. I know, Pete, you're way against him. I certainly don't want him at a short price, and I certainly don't want him as the favorite. But I do think there's a reason why he's not retired. I think he goes back to his 3-year-old form here. But if there's one that can beat him, and if I'm going to take a stab in a long shot, which is what I would prefer to do for a contest like Public Handicapper, I think I'm going to go with number 1, No Walking. This is a horse for Phil D'Amato that took a little while for the light to go on, and when the light did go on, he broke his maiden and then came right back and fired a 100 and an optional claimer that came back relatively live with a couple next out winners. They liked him enough to send him to the to Penn National, where he ran a good third, again against a pretty decent field. I mean, Golden Lad's a nice horse for Todd Pletcher, and again a couple next out winners in that race, and he's just one that he gets weight from most of the field. He could work out a good trip sitting, 3rd or 4th off the speed if the speed does fold. He's one that maybe we haven't seen the best from yet, and Phil D'Amato is a trainer that you can't dismiss with any of his starters on any surface. So 20 to 1 or higher, I like him.
I respect that. Respect that pick.
All right, well, that covers it for the PH races. We've got a couple minutes left. Is there anything we want to cover before we head out and take a look at the scratches and the opening day card at Saratoga?
Well, I think
I have a question for Scott.
Okay.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I want to talk to you about your NHC experiences. How many times have you gone to the big dance, and how would you describe it to the folks out there listening who have maybe never been but are thinking of trying to qualify this year?
Okay, well, I've gone 7 times, and the first time was the best time. I finished 23rd. Unfortunately, they were paying only to 20 that year, which was a big bummer. Yeah. And the worst part is the last race, I had 2 4-to-1s that I liked, and I couldn't decide between them, and I went with the wrong one. Otherwise, I would have been in the top 20. But yeah, I'd say I definitely want to get in. I haven't gotten in this year. I've got like 4,000 tour points. I'm almost there. I just need to do a little better this year. I'd say now more than ever, you don't want to miss the NAC. I mean, now more than ever, it's really, truly awesome. They've done a tremendous job with it. I know a lot of the ideas have come from Chris Larmy, who's Derby 1592 on Public Handicapper Editors page.
And Twitter.
Great guy to follow. It's 3 days now, so well, first of all, just the vibe is right. All the best handicappers are there. I mean, not everybody, because sometimes they don't make it, but it's a bunch of superstars in the handicapping world. The vibe is great. There's 2 days of contest play, and if you don't make it, you've got the consolation contest the next day. So, like, a friend of mine, Wayne Kwan, he didn't do well in the first 2 days, but then the third day, he won the conso prize, and that was worth $10,000. So, and then there's the final table. Yeah, right. And then there's the final table, which nobody leaves because they're, instead of like just saying, oh, well, I lost, so I'm leaving, everybody stays and roots for them and continues to handicap. So it's magical. I don't ever want to miss it. I'm going to try not to miss it again. The 1 year, 2 years ago that I didn't make it, I was totally bummed out. So I'd say, to anybody who's thinking about going for it or who is currently going for it, continue to do it because it's worth it just to be there.
If only we could play. We being Pete and me.
Yeah, I mean it's a bummer that you can't do that, but
we're in a small group. I think most of the listeners don't have to worry about being DRF employees and therefore not eligible.
I think you should be able to play, but just not be eligible to win prize money.
Sure.
Then you can
then
match wits.
Well, I could.
It's still fun.
Sure.
Look, I don't win any money on Public Handicapper when I hit, but
that's true.
Like I'll take a Public Handicapper winner over a 10 to 1 that I have $20 on anytime.
Sure. Yeah, it's bragging rights.
I love it.
All right, you had a final thought, huh?
No. I know you were wanting to talk about some of the races today. So if you have any time, you can talk about those.
Well, there's a horse I like a little bit today. Michael Matz has a horse named Ascot Girl running in one of the turf route allowances. And in my bet this, not that, I mentioned how well Matz has done with all turf runners at Saratoga the last 5 years. They tend to get overlooked. The horse is 20 to 1 on the morning line. Broke her maiden in her debut at Gulfstream at 48 to 1. Again, you do the Matz doesn't get him cranked to win first out. So as such, and you probably remember the race.
I remember because I was in a contest. I forget which contest it was.
Yeah, and then came back to run relatively weaker efforts, but both of those were on yielding or soft turf courses. Gets back to firm here, is going to be completely overlooked in the wagering, and might get a nice pace set up at 20 to 1. I like Ascot Girl a little bit today.
Which race is that?
I think it's the 7th, maybe? Yeah. So that's my wise guy play for the day. Pete, you got any live tips?
I haven't made any. I haven't made any final decisions yet. I'm looking forward to seeing Trev's sister in the flesh in that same race that you just mentioned, Trophy for Clermont. And it looks to me like you might have a chance to reach for a price there and in the Lake George as well. Those are the two races I'll be playing. Maybe I'll send out some thoughts on Twitter as we get closer to post after they walk by for those races as to some potential interesting plays.
Here's what I tweeted out about Clermont in regards to Trophy. Clermont turf routes at Saratoga last 5 years with last out maiden winners. 0 for 9, none of them have hit the board. So granted, it's a small sample size, but they all get bet, and the fact that none of them even hit the board made me, obviously she's, I think, your favorite and very possibly a likely winner. The pedigree, you can't beat it, but that's partly why I was wanting to take a stab in that race, just because I think there are some horses that are going to take some money.
I like that. I'm going to have to handicap that race.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
It's a cool race.
Yep.
Scott, always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Pete, good to see you, if only via remote, and hopefully we'll see you in the flesh sometime this meet, because I'd love to make it up there, but, no guarantees.
May you win all your photos.
There you go.